Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. We hope you had a lovely Janmashtami and Srila Prabhupada Vyasa Puja festival celebration, wherever you are, at home or in temples. We're here, kind of aloof in a sense, but very much plugged in by this hearing and chanting every day of Caitanya-caritämrta. We welcome you all with affection. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, as we have been quoting every day since we started reading the Caitanya-caritämrta, was very fond of this literature. In fact, he spoke this very classic, poetic glorification just after he finished a lecture in which the Ganga came up out of its bank just a little bit and then receded from some earth tremor. He said, in due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam. But under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Okay. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has liberated Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, one of the highlights of his pastimes. Now, we've reached Madhya 7, Madhya-lila, chapter 7. The Lord begins his tour of South India. In his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur summarizes the 7th chapter as follows. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the renounced order of life in the month of Magh, January-February, and went to Jagannath Puri in the month of Phalguna, February-March. He saw the Dola Yatra festival during the month of Phalguna, and in the month of Chaitra, he liberated Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. During the month of Vaishakha, he began to tour South India. When he proposed to travel to South India alone, Sri Nityananda Prabhu gave him a Brahmana assistant named Krishnadas. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was beginning his tour, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gave him 4 sets of clothes and requested him to see Ramananda Roy, who was residing at that time on the bank of the river Godavari. Along with other devotees, Nityananda Prabhu accompanied the Lord to Alalanath. But there Lord Chaitanya left them all behind and went ahead with the Brahmana Krishnadas. The Lord began chanting the mantra, Krishna, 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 Hey. In whatever village he spent the night, whenever a person came to see him in his shelter, the Lord implored him to preach the Krishna consciousness movement. After teaching the people in one village, the Lord proceeded to another village, to other villages, to increase devotees. In this way, he finally reached Kurmasthana. While there, he bestowed his causeless mercy upon a Brahmana named Kurma and cured another Brahmana named Vasudeva, who was suffering from leprosy. After curing this Brahmana leper, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu received the title Vasudevamrita Prada, meaning one who delivered nectar to the leper, Vasudeva. Text 1. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being very compassionate toward a Brahmana named Vasudeva, cured him of leprosy. He transformed him into a beautiful man, satisfied with devotional service. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the glorious Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 2. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda. All Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Acharya. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. After delivering Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the Lord desired to go to South India to preach. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the renounced order during the waxing fortnight of the month of Magh. During the following month, Phalguna, he went to Jagannath Puri and resided there. Text 5. At the end of the month of Phalguna, he witnessed the Dola Yatra ceremony, and in his usual ecstatic love of God, he chanted and danced in various ways on the occasion. Text 6. During the month of Chaitra, while living in Jagannath Puri, the Lord delivered Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and at the beginning of the next month, Vaishakha, he decided to go to South India. Text 7 and 8. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called all his devotees together and holding them by the hand, humbly informed them, "You are all more dear to me than my life. I cannot give up my life, I can give up my life, but to give you up is difficult for me." Text 9. You are all my friends, and you have properly executed the duties of friends by bringing me here to Jagannath Puri and giving me the chance to see Lord Jagannath in the temple. Text 10. I now beg all of you for one bit of charity. Please give me permission to leave for a tour of South India. I shall go to search out Vishwarupa. Please forgive me, but I want to go alone. I do not wish to take anyone with me. 12. Until I return from Setubandha, all of you dear friends should remain at Jagannath Puri. Knowing everything, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was aware that Vishwarupa had already passed away. A pretense of ignorance was necessary, however, so that he could go to South India and liberate the people there. Upon hearing this message from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees became very unhappy and remained silent with sullen faces. Text 15. Nityananda Prabhu then said, "How is it possible for you to go alone? Who can tolerate this? Let one or two of us go with you. Otherwise, you may fall into the clutches of thieves and rogues along the way. They may be whomever you like, but 2 persons should go with you." Text 17. Indeed, I know all the paths to the different places of pilgrimage in South India. Just order me, and I shall go with you. The Lord replied, I am simply a dancer, and you are the wire puller. However you pull the wires to make me dance, I shall dance in that way. After accepting the sannyas order, I decided to go to Vrindavan, but you took me instead to the house of Advaita Prabhu. While on the way to Jagannath Puri, you broke my sannyas staff. I know that all of you have great affection for me, but such things disturb my activities. 21. Jagadananda wants me to enjoy bodily sense gratification, and out of fear, I do whatever he tells me. 22. If I sometimes do something against his desire, out of anger, he will not talk to me for 3 days. Being a sannyasi, I have a duty to lie down on the ground and to take a bath 3 times a day, even during the winter. But Mukunda becomes very unhappy when he sees my severe austerities. Of course, Mukunda does not say anything, but I know that he is very unhappy within. And upon seeing him unhappy, I become twice as unhappy. 25. Although I am in the renounced order of life, and Damodar is a brahmachari, he still keeps a stick in his hand just to educate me. According to Damodar, I am still a neophyte as far as social etiquette is concerned. Therefore, he does not like my independent nature. Damodar Pandit and others are more advanced in receiving the mercy of Lord Krishna. Therefore, they are independent of public opinion. As such, they want me to enjoy sense gratification, even though it be unethical. But since I am a poor sannyasi, I cannot abandon the duties of the renounced order, and therefore I follow them strictly. Purport. A brahmachari is supposed to assist a sannyasi. Therefore, a brahmachari should not try to instruct a sannyasi. That is the etiquette. Consequently, Damodar should not have advised Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of his duty. 28, unless he's asked, of course. You should all therefore remain here in Nilachala for some days while I tour the sacred places of pilgrimage alone. 29. Actually, the Lord was controlled by the good qualities of all his devotees. On the pretense of attributing faults, he tasted all these qualities. Purport. All the accusations made by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu against his beloved devotees actually showed his great appreciation of their intense love for him. Yet he mentioned these faults one after another as if he were offended by their intense affection. The personal associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes behaved contrary to regulative principles out of intense love for the Lord. And because of their love, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself sometimes violated the regulative principles of a sannyasi. In the eyes of the public, such violations are not good, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so controlled by his devotees' love that he was obliged to break some of the rules. Although accusing them, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was indirectly indicating that he was very satisfied with their behavior in pure love of Godhead. Therefore, in verse 27, he mentions that his devotees and associates place more importance on love of Krishna than on social etiquette. There are many instances of devotional service rendered by previous acharyas who did not care about social behavior when intensely absorbed in love for Krishna. Unfortunately, as long as we are within this material world, we must observe social customs to avoid criticism by the general populace. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire. 30. No one can properly describe Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's affection for his devotees. He always tolerated all kinds of personal unhappiness resulting from his acceptance of the renounced order of life. 31. The regulative principles observed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were sometimes intolerable, and all the devotees became greatly affected by them. Although strictly observing the regulative principles, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not tolerate the unhappiness felt by his devotees. 32. Therefore, to prevent them from accompanying him and becoming unhappy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declared their good qualities to be false. Purport. The Lord wanted to tour all the places of pilgrimage alone and strictly observe the duties of the renounced order. 33. 4 devotees then humbly insisted that they go with the Lord. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being the independent Supreme Personality of Godhead, did not accept their request. 34. Thereupon Lord Nityananda said, "Whatever you order is my duty, regardless of whether it results in happiness or unhappiness. Yet I still submit one petition to you. Please consider it if you think it proper. Please accept it. Please consider it, and if you think it proper, please accept it. You must take with you a loincloth, external clothes, and a water pot. You should take nothing more than this. Since your 2 hands will always be engaged in chanting and counting the holy names, how will you be able to carry the water pot and external garments?" Purport. From this verse, it is clear that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting the holy names a fixed number of times daily. The Goswamis used to follow in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Haridas Thakur also followed this principle. Concerning the Goswamis, Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Sanatan Goswami, Srila Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami, Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, Srinivasacharya confirms Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Natibi, Sadgoswamastika 6. In addition to other duties, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced the system of chanting the holy name of the Lord a fixed number of times daily, as confirmed in this verse, Tomara Dvi Hasta Bhada Nama Ganane. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to count on his fingers. While one hand was engaged in chanting, the other hand kept the number of rounds. This is corroborated in the Caitanya-caritämrta and also in Srila Rupa Goswami's Stavamala. Badnan prema bada prakampita karo grantin kati dordakai sankhya tum nijaloka mangalahare krishneti nam nam japan. Caitanya-caritämrta 16. Hari Krishnet Yuchai Spurita Rasano Nama Ganana Krita Ganti Shreni Subhagakati Sudro Jwalakaraha. Pratama Chaitanyastaka 5. Therefore, devotees in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must chant at least 16 rounds daily, and this is the number prescribed by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Haridas Thakur daily chanted 300,000 names. 16 rounds is about 28,000 names. There is no need to imitate Haridas Thakur or the other Goswamis, but chanting the holy name a fixed number of times daily is essential for every devotee. Text 38. When along the way you fall unconscious in ecstatic love of Godhead, who will protect your belongings, the water pot, garments, and so forth? 39. Sri Nityananda Prabhu continued, here is a simple Brahmana named Krishnadas. Please accept him and take him with you. That is my request. Purport. This Krishnadas, known as Kala Krishnadas, is not the Kala Krishnadas mentioned in the 11th chapter, verse 37 of the Madhya-lila. The Kala Krishnadas mentioned in the 11th chapter is one of the 12 Gopalas, cowherd boys, who appeared in order to substantiate the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is known as a great devotee of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. The Brahmana named Kala Krishnadas, who went with Sri Chaitanya to South India and later to Bengal, is mentioned in the Madhya-lila, 10th chapter, verses 62 through 79. One should not take these two to be the same person. Text 40. He will carry your water pot and garments. You may do whatever you like. He will not say a word. Text 41. Accepting the request of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya took all his devotees and went to the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. As soon as he entered his house, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya offered the Lord obeisances and a place to sit. After seating all the others, the Bhattacharya took his seat. My elder brother, after they discussed various topics about Lord Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu informed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, I have come to your place just to receive your order. Text 44. My elder brother, Vishwarup, has taken sannyas and gone to South India. Now, I must go search for him. For I must tour South India. With your permission, I shall soon return very happily. Upon hearing this, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became very much agitated. Catching hold of the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave this sorrowful reply. After many births, due to some pious activity, I got your association. Now Providence is breaking this invaluable association. If a thunderbolt falls on my head, or if my son dies, I can tolerate it, but I cannot endure the unhappiness of separation from you. My dear Lord, you are the independent, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Certainly you will depart. I know that. Still, I ask you to stay here a few days more so that I can see your lotus feet. Upon hearing Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's request, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relented. He stayed a few days longer and did not depart. The Bhattacharya eagerly invited Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his home and fed him very nicely. The Bhattacharya's wife, whose name was Shatimata, mother of Shati, did the cooking. The narrations of these pastimes are very wonderful. Later, I shall tell about this elaborate Later I shall tell about this in elaborate detail, but at present I wish to describe Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's South Indian tour. 54. After staying 5 days at the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally asked his permission to depart for South India. After receiving the Bhattacharya's permission, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to see Lord Jagannath in the temple. He took the Bhattacharya with him. Seeing Lord Jagannath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also begged his permission. The priest then immediately delivered prasadam and a garland to Lord Chaitanya. Text 57. Thus receiving Lord Jagannath's permission in the form of a garland, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered obeisances, and then in great jubilation he prepared to depart for South India. Accompanied by his personal associates and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu circumambulated the altar of Jagannath. The Lord then departed on his South Indian tour. While the Lord was going along the path to Alalanath, which was located on the seashore, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gave the following orders to Gopinath Acharya. Bring the 4 sets of loincloths and outer garments I keep at home, and also bring some prasadam, of Lord Jagannath. You may carry these things with the help of some brahmana. 61. When Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was departing, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya submitted the following at his lotus feet. My Lord, I have one final request that I hope you will kindly fulfill. In the town of Vidyanagar, on the bank of the Godavari, in the town of Vidyanagar, on the bank of the Godavari, there is a responsible government officer named Ramananda Roy. Purport. In the Amrita Pravaha Bhashya, Bhaktivinoda Thakur states that Vidyanagar is today known as Porbandar. There is another Porbandar in western India, in the province of Gujarat. Text 63. Please do not neglect him, thinking he belongs to a Shudra family, engaged in material activities. It is my request that you meet him without fail. Purport. In the Varnashram Dharma, the Shudra is the 4th division in the social class. Paricharyatmakam karma srujyashapi swabhavajam. Gita 1844. Shudras are meant to engage in the service of the 3 higher classes, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. Sri Ramananda Roy belonged to the Karana class, which is the equivalent of the Kayastha class in Bengal. This class is regarded all over India as Shudra. It is said that the Bengali Kayasthas were originally engaged as servants of Brahmanas who came from North India to Bengal. Later, the clerical class became the Kayasthas in Bengal. Now there are many mixed classes known as Kayastha. Sometimes it is said in Bengal that those who cannot claim any particular class belong to the Kayastha class. Although these Kayasthas or Karanas are considered Shudras, they are very intelligent and highly educated. Most of them are professionals, such as lawyers or politicians. Thus, in Bengal, the Kayasthas are sometimes considered Kshatriyas. In Orissa, however, the Kayastha class, which includes the Karanas, is considered in the Shudra category. Srila Ramananda Roy belonged to this Karana class. Therefore, he was considered a Shudra. He was also the governor of South India under the regime of Maharaj Prataparudra of Orissa. In other words, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya informed Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that Ramananda Roy, although belonging to the Shudra class, was a highly responsible government officer. As far as spiritual advancement is concerned, materialists, politicians, and Shudras are generally disqualified. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya therefore requested that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu not neglect Ramananda Roy, who was highly advanced spiritually, although he is born a Shudra and a materialist. A Vishayi is one who is attached to family life and is interested only in wife, children, and worldly sense gratification. The senses can be engaged either in worldly enjoyment or in the service of the Lord. Those who are not engaged in the service of the Lord and are interested only in material sense gratification are called Vishayi. Srila Ramananda Roy was engaged in government service and he belonged to the Karana class. He was certainly not a sannyasi in saffron cloth, yet he was in the transcendental position of a Paramahamsa householder. Before becoming Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disciple, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya considered Ramananda Roy an ordinary Vishayi because he was a householder engaged in government service. However, when the Bhattacharya was actually enlightened in Vaishnava philosophy, he could understand the exalted transcendental position of Sri Ramananda Roy. Therefore, he referred to him as Adhikari. An Adhikari is one who knows the transcendental science of Krishna and is engaged in his service. Therefore, all Grihastha devotees are designated as Das Adhikari. Text 64. 1 second. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continued, Ramananda Roy is a fit person to associate with you. No other devotee can compare with him in knowledge of the transcendental mellows. 65. He is a most learned scholar, as well as an expert in devotional mellows. Actually, he is most exalted, and if you talk with him, you will see how glorious he is. 66. I could not realize when I first spoke with Ramananda Roy that his topics and endeavors were all transcendentally uncommon. I made fun of him simply because he was a Vaishnava. Purport. Anyone who is not a Vaishnava or an unalloyed devotee of the Supreme Lord must be a materialist. A Vaishnava living according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's injunctions is certainly not on the materialistic platform. Chaitanya means spiritual force. All of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities were carried out on the platform of spiritual understanding. Therefore, only those who are on the spiritual platform are able to understand the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Materialistic persons cannot understand these activities and are generally known as karmis or jnanis. The jnanis are mental speculators who simply try to understand what is spirit and what is matter. Their process is neti neti. This is not spirit, this is not Brahman. The jnanis are a little more advanced than the dull-headed karmis, who are simply interested in sense gratification. Before becoming a Vaishnava, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a mental speculator, jnani, and being such, he always cut jokes with Vaishnavas. A Vaishnava never agrees with the speculative system of the Jnanis. Both the Jnanis and Karmis depend on direct sense perception for their imperfect knowledge. The Karmis never agreed to accept anything not directly perceived, and the Jnanis put forth only hypotheses. However, the Vaishnavas, the unalloyed devotees of the Lord, do not follow the process of acquiring knowledge by direct sense perception or mental speculation. Because they are servants of the Supreme Lord, devotees received knowledge directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as He speaks it in the Bhagavad Gita, or sometimes as He imparts it from within as the Chaitya Guru. As Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita 10.10, Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. The Vedas are considered to have been spoken by the Supreme Lord. They were first realized by Brahma, who was the first created being within the universe. Tenhi Brahma Ridha Ya Adi Kavaye. Our process is to receive knowledge through the Parampara system, from Krishna to Brahma, to Narada, Vyas, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the 6 Goswamis. By disciplic succession, Lord Brahma was enlightened from within by the original person, Krishna. Our knowledge is fully perfect due to being handed from master to disciple. A Vaishnava is always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, and thus neither Karmis nor Jnanis can understand the activities of a Vaishnava. It is said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vigyeha Na Bujaya. Even the most learned man, depending on direct perception of knowledge, cannot understand the activities of a Vaishnava. After being initiated into Vaishnavism by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya realized what a mistake he had made in trying to understand Ramananda Roy, who was very learned and whose endeavors were all directed to rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord. Text 57. The Bhattacharya said, "By your mercy, I can now understand the truth about Ramananda Roy. In talking with him, you also will acknowledge his greatness." Text 68. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's request that he meet Ramananda Roy. Bidding Sarvabhauma farewell, the Lord embraced him. Text 69. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked the Bhattacharya to bless him while he engaged in the devotional service of Krishna at home, so that by Sarvabhauma's mercy the Lord could return to Jagannath Puri. Purport. The word Kariha Ashirvade means continue to bestow your blessings upon me. Being a sannyasi, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in the 4th order of life and was thus due all respect and adoration, whereas Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, as a householder, was in the 2nd order. A sannyasi is supposed to offer blessings to a grihastha, yet now, by his practical behavior, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested the blessings of a grihastha. This incident shows the special significance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching. He gave equal status to everyone, regardless of material considerations. His movement is thoroughly spiritual. Although apparently a grihastha, householder, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was unlike the so-called karmis interested in sense gratification. After being initiated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Bhattacharya was perfectly situated in the spiritual order. Therefore, it was quite possible for him to offer blessings even to a sannyasi. He was always engaged in the service of the Lord, even at home. In our disciplic line, we have the example of a perfect householder, Paramahansa, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In his book, Sharanagati, Bhaktivinoda Thakur states, Ye dina grihe bhajana deki grihe te goloka bhaya. Sharanagati 31:6. Sharanagati 31:6. Whenever a householder glorifies the Supreme Lord in his home, his activities are immediately transformed into the activities of Goloka Vrindavan, spiritual activities taking place in the Goloka Vrindavan planet of Krishna. Activities exhibited by Krishna himself at Bhoma Vrindavan, the Vrindavan Dham existing on this planet, are not different from his activities on the planet Goloka Vrindavan. This is proper realization of Vrindavan anywhere. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we inaugurated the new Vrindavan activities, wherein devotees are always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And this is not different from Goloka Vrindavan. The conclusion is that one who acts strictly in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is competent to offer blessings to sannyasis, even though he be a grihasta householder. Although he is in an exalted position, a sannyasi still must elevate himself to the transcendental platform by rendering service to the Lord. By his actual behavior, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu begged the blessings of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. In this way, he set the example of how one should expect blessings from a Vaishnava regardless of his social position. Text 70. Saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed on his tour, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya immediately fainted and fell to the ground. Text 71. Although Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya fainted, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not take notice of him. Rather, he left quickly. Who can understand the mind and intention of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Purport. It was naturally expected that when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya fainted and fell to the ground, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would have taken care of him and waited for him to regain consciousness. But he did not do so. Rather, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately started on his tour. It is therefore very difficult to understand the activities of a transcendental person. Sometimes they may seem rather odd, but a transcendental personality remains in his position unaffected by material considerations. Text 72. Mahanubhavera chitera svabhava haye. This is the nature of the mind of an uncommon personality. Sometimes it is soft like a flower, but sometimes it is as hard as a thunderbolt. Purport. The softness of a flower and the hardness of a thunderbolt are reconciled in the behavior of a great personality. The following quotation from Uttara Rama Charita 2.7 explains this behavior. One may also consult the Madhya-lila, 3rd chapter, verse 212. Text 73. The hearts of those above common behavior are sometimes harder than a thunderbolt and sometimes softer than a flower. How can one accommodate such contradictions in great personalities? 74. Lord Nityananda Prabhu raised Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and with the help of his men saw him to his home. Text 75. Immediately all the devotees came and partook of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's company. Afterwards, Gopinath Acharya came with the garments and prasadam. Text 76. All the devotees followed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to a place known as Alalanath. There they offered respects and offered prayers and various prayers. Alalanath. Text 77. In great ecstasy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and chanted for some time. Indeed, all the neighbors came to see him. All around Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was also known as Gaura Hari, people began to shout the holy name of Hari. Lord Chaitanya, immersed in his usual ecstasy of love, danced in the midst of them. Text 79. The body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was naturally very beautiful. It was like molten gold, dressed in saffron cloth. But now he became most beautiful due to being ornamented with the ecstatic symptoms of bodily hair standing on end, tears welling up in his eyes, trembling, and profuse perspiration. Everyone present was astonished to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dancing and his bodily transformations. Whoever came did not want to return home. 81. Everyone, including children, old men and women, began to dance and to chant the holy names of Sri Krishna and Gopal. In this way they all floated in the ocean of love of Godhead. Upon seeing the chanting and dancing of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda predicted that later there would be dancing and chanting in every village. Purport. This prediction of Sri Nityananda Prabhu's is applicable not only in India, but also all over the world. That is now happening by his grace. The members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness are now traveling from one village to another in the Western countries and are even carrying the deity with them. These devotees distribute various literatures all over the world. We hope that these devotees who are preaching the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will very seriously follow strictly in his footsteps. If they follow the rules and regulations and chant 16 rounds daily, their endeavor to preach the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will certainly be successful. Seeing that it was already getting late, Lord Nityananda Prabhu, the spiritual master, invented a means to disperse the crowd. When Lord Nityananda Prabhu took Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for lunch at noon, everyone came running around them. After finishing their baths, they returned at noon to the temple. Admitting his own men, Sri Nityananda Prabhu closed the outside door. 86. Gopinath Acharya then brought prasadam for the two lords to eat, and after they had eaten, the remnants of the food were distributed to all the devotees. Hearing about this, everyone came to the outside door and began chanting the holy name, Hari, Hari. Thus there was a tumultuous sound. After lunch, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made them open the door. In this way, everyone received his audience with great pleasure. The people came and went until evening, and all of them became Vaishnava devotees and began to chant and dance. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then passed the night there and discussed the pastimes of Lord Krishna with his devotees with great pleasure. And we'll stop here, 8 o'clock. Tomorrow we'll hear the beginning of Lord Chaitanya's South Indian tour. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai. All right, our trusty Abhay Das Brahmachari, diligently holding the open mic, ready to pass on the reflections from the Vaishnavas.
There's a question from Santa Rupa Devidasi.
From
Santa Rupa.
Santa Rupa Devidasi. Hare Krishna.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Why would one, this was a question I missed yesterday, so how would one desire to be impersonal? Better, why would one want to be impersonal?
Why would one want to be impersonal? Because out of envy of Krishna. We came here to the material world, according to the Bhagavad Gita, for two reasons. Ichcha, Dvesha, Samutina, Dvandva, Mohena, Bharata. Ichcha means desire, and Dvesha means aversion. So all of us came to this material world out of desire to enjoy sense gratification separately from Krishna, and therefore we felt Dvesha, that means aversion to having Krishna around. We wanted a place that we could be independent of Krishna, without Krishna's presence. Therefore, some of us, conditioned souls, delight in this philosophy and in this consciousness of accepting the impersonal aspect of the Lord as the goal or the ultimate or whatever. It's another way to look at it is, once a person has come to the material world and tried to enjoy separately from the Lord, when he gets tired of doing that, he looks for something higher, he looks for something beyond just ordinary material activities. And because of this process of negation, neti, it's not this, neti, it's not that, neti, it's not this, because all the things that they come in contact with in the material world had caused them distress, misery in different ways. They try to negate the misery, which is a way of saying liberation, to negate, to escape, to negate the material miseries by defining the truth as something without activities, without form, without relationships, just the opposite of what they see in the material world. They do this from a poor lack of knowledge, a poor fund of knowledge. They don't have practical knowledge of what's beyond material activities in the material world, and therefore they define it as impersonal. Hare Krishna. And Krishna fulfills their desire. That's how kind Krishna is. In the 15th chapter, he says, Apoanamcha, I am the source of forgetfulness. So because they want so hard to forget him, he accommodates them and he gives them inspiration to forget him. That's how kind Krishna is. Hare Krishna.
There's Shantarupa Devidasi writes, voidism like the Buddhists?
There's two kinds of impersonalism. One of them is, well, there's actually three kinds of impersonalism. One of them is Shunyavad, and the other is Mayavad. Those are the two types. And the other is Brahmavad. So the Brahmavadis are sincere, and they've taken up the process of spiritual attainment, and they're going up gradually, and they've reached the place of being able to perceive the absolute truth from a great distance. And therefore they have a vague idea that everything is Brahman, everything comes from a single source. But their knowledge doesn't go beyond that. That's the Brahmavadis. The Shunyavadis are those who have heard from Buddha, who is also an incarnation of Krishna, who came here out of compassion for the animals and to correct the behavior of the Vedic priests or Vedic brahmanas who were misusing the hymns of the Vedas to slaughter animals unrestrictedly. It's kind of like Jesus Christ when he overturned the tables in the temple in Jerusalem out of disgust for their activities. They were slaughtering animals, selling them, and then taking the money and more or less doing business. So like that, Lord Buddha came and he was disgusted, and so he preached a philosophy of voidism which is openly atheistic. In his concept, there is no God, although he was God. So the Vedas describe, the Bhagavatam especially describes, that Buddha came to trick the atheists into a kind of theism, in that he taught them there is no God, the Vedas are not correct. And then he taught them a method of meditation that just depended on their own endeavor. And he taught them to worship him. They would offer him flowers and water and incense. And they do it to this day. They think there's no God, but they worship Lord Buddha, who is God. I was in Japan, I saw some of the elaborate temples that they have. There's one temple that I went to where there's a huge Buddha deity, and then there's all kinds of demigods and just the same personalities who are in the Vedas, were all there surrounding him. Very interesting. So, and then the Mayavad is Nirvishesh. Nirvishesh means, yes, there is God, but he's not personal. This is the worst of all of them. The Buddhists, at least, they're honest to say there is no God. The Brahmavadis are just innocent and they're looking for God, and they've come to the realization that there is a God, but they haven't come close enough yet. But the Nirvishesh, the Mayavads, are the worst, because they say that there is a God, but he's not personal. it was a way of tricking. See, Buddha came to trick the so-called innocent public away from the brahmanas who were cheating them and decried the Vedas. And then Shankaracharya, Lord Shiva, who was sent by Krishna to preach this Mayavad philosophy, to be able to trick them into coming back to the Vedic culture. But because they were so accustomed to an impersonal way of thinking, it attracted them because it had an impersonal conclusion. Now, therefore, Shankaracharya is not at fault. There's a lot of many purports in which Prabhupada condemns and Lord Chaitanya himself condemns the Mayavad philosophy. You know, he said that the Mayavad, anyone who hears the Mayavad philosophy is doomed. Mayapura Bhasha Shalima, I forget the Bengali, but it means that the Mayavadis are condemned. But Lord Shiva, as a personality, he ended up his pastimes just before he ended Bhaja Govinda, Madhya Govinda, Madhya Govinda, Manomohe, that, you know, oh fools, your juggling words will not get you the goal. Chant the names of Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda. So actually, Lord Shiva is doing a service by following Lord Krishna's instructions to do this. So he is not to be blamed. As a matter of fact, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, he is the most exalted Vaishnava. He is not a jiva, he's not Vishnu Tattva, he's in between. He's Vishnu Tattva who has touched the material nature in order to oversee a part of the material world, a part of the activities of the material world, in a way that changes him in quality. So he comes from Vishnu Tattva to Shiva Tattva. There's only one Lord Shiva, only one personality who is Shiva Tattva, just like there's only one Vishnu Tattva. But because he preached a philosophy that juggled the words of the Vedas, and especially the Upanishads, and brought out the conclusion that Vyasadeva made a mistake. That was the element of his philosophy that was offensive. But it was done as a service in order to change the people's minds away from the Vedas toward the Vedas again. So the Mayavad philosophy declares that anything with a form is Maya. And because Krishna has a form when he comes to this material world, the form of Krishna, they say, is Maya. It's a part of the material energy. It's a very intricate philosophy. We don't have time to get into it, the details of it now, but that's the essence of it. Anything with a form is illusion, is false, and therefore Krishna is false, and his devotional service is false. And if they do worship the deity, because it's there in the Vedas, they worship with the goal of merging into the deity, merging into the body of God. That is the most offensive philosophy.
There's a question from Jai Baladev.
Jai Baladev, Haribol, Hare Krishna.
He says, referring to text 44, were Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his elder brother Vishvarupa ever reunited?
No, he found out that, well, they were, in the sense that when Vishvarup passed away, he merged into Lord Nityananda. That's what I have heard from the authorities. So in that sense, they were united, but not in the form of Vishwarup. Vishwarup passed away, and it was said there, I think maybe it's the verse he's referring to, text 44, that it's described there that Lord Chaitanya already knew that Vishwarup had departed, but he used that as a pretext to go to the south and search for him. Hare Krishna.
Shantarupa Devi Dasi says, thank you for this clarification.
Hare Krishna. It's my pleasure.
And from Rati Manjari, she says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. I'm happy to be back in your exalted association. Thank you for the wonderful reading of tonight. One of the things I loved hearing about were the refined and intricate dealings of the Lord and his devotees. For example, how Lord Chaitanya tried to leave his devotees' association behind because they persuaded him not to be so strict in his following of the rules of the sannyasa ashram, but that by pointing out the so-called faults in them, he actually praised the quality of their unalloyed love for him.
Yes.
It made me realize once again that we really need the explanations of the acharyas in order to be able to understand even a tiny bit about what we are hearing.
Exactly. That's what Prabhupada's purports are about. That's what Prabhupada's purports are about. They explain everything. And another point on that point, another aspect of it is that Lord Chaitanya was completely submissive to his devotees. He was controlled by the love of his devotees. This is one of the evidences that the eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya, they're not ordinary people. They're liberated souls. And if we accept them as such and hear about them in that mood, then we become eligible to become liberated and join them. But Lord Chaitanya, he would not do anything without the permission of his devotees. Just like he had to stay in Jagannath Puri a few more days because Sarvabhauma asked him to. He couldn't say no.
There's a comment from Donna Menard.
Donna Menard?
Says, I listen to you every day. If I'm out, I save the videos. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. You made my day.
And one comment from Sudevi Dasi.
Hare Krishna Sudevi.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my affectionate obeisances and glories to Srila Prabhupada and your life-saving daily readings.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. I'm the one whose life is being saved.
And then May M. Maitreyi.
Oh, May Maitreyi.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now on, we'll be trying to join online here, live at break from work, or recorded.
Thank you.
And something from Doyle Nitai, Prabhu. Doyle Nitai?
Yeah.
It says, Dear and respected Srila Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisance. Hare Krishna. Is any solid credence given to the version that Sriman Vishwarup was the sannyasi who took Sri Nityananda on pilgrimage from his parental home?
We've never, there's no corroboration of that I've ever heard.
Any question from Rati Manjari? She says, tonight we heard that a Vaishnava can be as hard as a thunderbolt and as soft as a flower. My question is, do you recall a particular situation in which Srila Prabhupada expressed this side of being as hard as a thunderbolt, which specifically impressed you?
Well, Satsarup Maharaj tells the story that when he was the secretary of Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada once wrote a letter to an important person, and he gave an enclosure, and Satsarup was the secretary, so he sent the letter and he forgot to put the enclosure in. So then the person wrote back to Srila Prabhupada and he asked him where was the enclosure. So Prabhupada immediately brought Satsarup Maharaj into his room, into his office, and he said, so where's the enclosure? What happened to this enclosure? And he was very angry, very angry. And Satsarup said, I forgot. Prabhupada said, why did you forget? And he said, because I'm a fool. Why are you such a fool? And so he went on and on like this. He went on and on and on. And finally, Satsarup Maharaj was just pouring tears. And he more or less felt like, he told me this, he more or less felt like he had been disassembled. His whole being had been disassembled. He was, on the floor in the pool of, tears. And then, obviously by Krishna's grace, by Prabhupada's grace, he thought, Srila Prabhupada, I'll write a letter to him, and I'll explain to him that I forgot, and I'll include the enclosure, and to please forgive me for my offense. And then Prabhupada, on the dime, on a drop of as soon as he heard that, he said, oh, all right, fine then. And the whole atmosphere changed, and Prabhupada was no longer angry, and it was like it never happened. So that's what it means that he's soft like a rose. And usually Prabhupada used to tell us, if you're in a position of authority, you carry the rose mainly, and then when the thunderbolt does come out, it's very effective. If you carry the thunderbolt all the time, it will not be so effective. Because devotional service is an act of love. It cannot be forced. It's voluntary. So the way to actually spread Krishna consciousness is to treat everyone with deep, affectionate respect, and then they will voluntarily want to do devotional service to help you. Hare Krishna.
Doyle Nitaya says thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay, it's 8:25. I have something I have to do at 8:30, so I think I'll close up the reading for tonight. Thank you very much, everyone, for your lovely reflections and questions and discussion. And I remain your humble servant. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Samavira Bhakta-vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night. Same time, same station, same place, the live studios here in the Haven, Hive, Kent. Hare Krishna.